Mr. Chair, I mean, my only sort of concern is, as you know, appearances matter in situations like this, as you say, the court of public opinion. What is the harm in merely as a sort of preventative measure, given the fact that Councilmember Graham's top aide has been arrested and that 2 of his staffers are appearing before a grand jury, and simply taking the taxi cab portfolio from under his oversight temporarily as a matter of precaution, and just saying, once this investigation is resolved and council member, you're cleared of all the charges, you will resume your duties in that area.
Well, first of all, he has no charges that are pending against him, so let's not leave that
Sure.
impression. There's nothing that's been alleged about Mr. Graham's behavior. And as I said before, Mike, we will continue to monitor this situation. We'll continue to have conversations with the council member. But I think if we were to remove some of his responsibilities at this stage, it really would send a negative message to a lot of people, and that is, we believe that he may be guilty of something, and that is not a message that I want to send.
Wouldn't it give a positive message about the Council of the District of Columbia that you take ethical obligations and things like that very seriously?
Well, I think we've sent that message. For the first time, we've adopted a code of conduct for...
Why'd you feed him that softball? Why'd you give him that?
Well, we take it very seriously, Mike. As you well know, on the 22nd of September, the Council passed a code of conduct, and we're continuing on now to work on this issue. We're working on what the sanctions will be associated with...
I was about to say, we do have the code of conduct, but as they said in the old Wendy's commercial, where's the beef? There are no penalties.
You've been criticized. You've been criticized pretty widely at this point for the fact that it's toothless.
And you realize how unfair that is. I'm sure, as astute as you are, because we said when we rolled this out, when we came back, we said we would come back with a code of conduct, which there's never been one in the history of the council. We went through 10 pages of citations all across the government and called out those things that we now put succinctly in one statement. And we said at the time we rolled it out, we did a PowerPoint presentation, which I know you saw, that said, okay, here are the next steps. This is an evolutionary process, and we're working on sanctions now.
And I was going to note that I thought that criticism was unfair because that you had done a PowerPoint.
Well, wait a minute. I'm not so sure it's unfair as yet. The Washington Post editorialized
Well, I happen to agree with Mike, Kojo.
I happen to agree with me. The Washington Post editorialized today that they think it's right that you not put any penalties in place until the council, Robert Bennett,
yes.
Until the council, Robert Bennett, concludes his investigation of Councilmember Barry. And I guess some would argue, well, maybe you shouldn't put it in place until the investigation of Ted Loza and that complete trial and everything is complete. At what point do you put sanctions or penalties in place?
I think when they're ready. I think when they are ready. And the point that we made is that they weren't ready at that point. This is a complicated process. One, the investigatory process really has to be carefully crafted, because do you do it with other council members? What other council members would want to, comprise a panel that, that panel looking at its colleagues, and they would have to render judgments about colleagues' behavior. So that's a problem. Also, frankly, if that panel comes back and appropriately says this person is exonerated, there's nothing, there's potentially a public out there that would say, well, that's a whitewash. They covered up whatever was going on. On the other hand, if you do it externally, what external body then do you look to do this, and are the members going to feel comfortable that they would be treated fairly? So that is a strong consideration here as we put together an investigatory process. And then secondly, what are the sanctions? Do we do reprimands? Do we do censure? Frankly, expulsion is left to the people of the District of Columbia, because that would be a recall process. So all that has to be carefully thought through and crafted, and I think vetted with a number of people. We don't want to be precipitous in putting anything out there that may be half-baked.
Vincent.